He doesn't look back. Not yet. The oars pull slowly through water that 2 weeks ago was his front yard. He can feel the heat on the back of his neck without turning around. The old mechanic watched his neighbors leave for years, dismantling their homes, board by board, and hauled north on wagons. Nothing left but concrete foundations baking in the desert sun. But he had decided that he wasn't going anywhere. Part stubbornness, part faith. The idea maybe the government would change its mind. The hope that maybe the water wouldn't reach him. As he finally turns around to watch the flames engulf his house, the water is flat and still, and it goes on forever in every direction. And somewhere underneath the depths is a town he once called home. Imagine building something from nothing. You cross a dangerous desert with your family, your tools, and a bit of crop seed. You find a valley where two rivers meet. The soil is deep and fertile. You clear the surface and dig irrigation channels by hand. You work the land daily. Watch your children grow up in the house you built with your own two hands. You do this for 5 years. Then one day, a government official arrives with a piece of paper and tells your town that you've settled in the wrong state according to their surveys. You're not in Utah like you thought, you're in Nevada. And Nevada wants 5 years of back taxes, payable not in crops or anything your farming family actually has, payable in gold only. That's what happened to the first settlers of St. Thomas in 1870. 14 Mormon families, sent here by Brigham Young in 1865 to grow cotton for a church that needed a warm climate supply. They had built a real town, 600 acres under cultivation, streets lined with cottonwood trees, a post office, and a school. Their lives were suddenly at a crossroads: pay the gold or leave. They held a vote and decided to go, some burning their own homes on the way out, rather than surrender them outright. The last wagon rolled out on February 20th, 1871, and for a few years, the valley went quiet. By 1880, people began trickling back into the muddy river valley. They found the bones of what the first families had left behind, so they built on top of it. And this time, it took. By the 1920s, St. Thomas had a railroad, a hotel, an ice cream parlor. The Arrowhead Trail, the first automobile road between Los Angeles and Salt Lake City, ran through the town. This is where Hugh Lord opened his garage and went to work on the cars passing through. Business was good. The town had momentum. It had a future. Then on December 21st, 1928, President Coolidge signed a bill authorizing the building of a dam on the Colorado River. The reservoir it would create would be the largest man-made body of water in the Western Hemisphere. It would bring water and electricity to a growing American Southwest. And St. Thomas was in its path. Government appraisers arrived with clipboards. $40 an acre for land families had spent decades cultivating, for orchards that took years to bear fruit, for a life that, for the second time in 60 years, someone else decided wasn't theirs to live. Most took the money and moved on. A few residents, including Hugh Lord, decided to stay. He had given 10-to-1 odds the water would never reach his home. The water began to rise in 1935 with the completion of Hoover Dam, a slow, inevitable creep across the valley floor that everyone could see coming, and nobody could stop. And the people of St. Thomas had 3 years to think about what that meant. Some dismantled their homes board by board and hauled them to other towns on wagons. Others simply walked away with what they could carry. The government came and cut down the cottonwood trees lining the main street, 50 years of growth, so they wouldn't snag the boats that would someday pass over them. By 1937, the water was 12 miles away. People were still planting crops, still hoping, maybe, that something would change. But the water wouldn't be stopped. By the spring of 1938, St. Thomas was nearly empty. What had been a town of 234 people was now concrete foundations, the bones of something that used to be alive. In early June, Hugh Lord drove down to the water's edge to go fishing. He parked his car on a gentle slope, spent several hours out of sight of it. When he came back, he found that the lake had crept up around the vehicle while he was away, swirling around the running boards. He drove back to St. Thomas, sought out his friend Rox Whitmore, the other remaining town holdout, and told him the time had come for them to leave. On the morning of June 11, 1938, Hugh Lord woke up with water swirling around his bed. He reluctantly loaded his last few possessions into a rowboat, and as he began to row away, he set his house on fire. The Nevada State Journal ran the story that same day under a headline that said everything. Lake Mead is victor over Lord. Down the street, Postmaster Rox Whitmore spent the entire day canceling nearly 4,000 letters and postcards. Collectors from across the country had mailed envelopes to St. Thomas, desperate for a postmark from the day the town died. When he finished, Whitmore waded through the rising water with the mailbags. Then he threw his canceling stamp as far out into the lake as he could. For over 6 decades, St. Thomas sat under 60 feet of water. In 2002, a mega drought took hold of the region and didn't let go. St. Thomas reemerged from the waters of Lake Mead. You reach it today on a rough dirt road off the North Shore Highway, then a short hike across the dry lake bed. Seashells crunch under your feet. The foundations of the school, the ice cream parlor, and a few town buildings are all still there. Hugh Lord's grease pit, right where he left it. Journalist Jory Provis wrote, "St. Thomas did not die. It was murdered, not maliciously, but definitely with a forethought. St. Thomas was surrendered, given up, sacrificed, if you will, for the good of many." Hugh Lord knew that. He just wasn't ready to let it go. Not until the water said so.